Well, good morning, and can I ask you to take a moment to like and subscribe to this show if you've not already done so. Every click helps other motorcyclists. Oh, for heaven's sake. Every time I use this ruddy system, they've changed something. And so the video, which should stop when I change the view from video to presenter, doesn't stop. So anyway, here I am, Kevin Williams of Survival Skills Rider Training, and you are tuned into Elevenses. And this show's going out on Wednesday, the 14th of January. It's show 586. It should have gone out on Sunday, but I forgot that I was actually down in Eastbourne delivering a biker down course. So what have we got for you in today's show? Well, again, quite a packed show. We will look at the government's new consultation on their road safety strategy and explain how it affects motorcyclists. Motorcyclist Saudi's been killed in a collision on the M2 with a Tesla. Thieves pinched some motorcycles from a Grinch-themed window display, which is rather ironic, isn't it? An illegal e-bike rider, he lost his Christmas present to himself to police just 18 miles into his ownership. A L rider has been caught doing a Superman on dashcam. I imagine the police will be taking interest in that fairly soon. We'll have a quick look at some UK World News in brief before we move on to a little bit more detail on the final PTW registration data for 2024. Honda are introducing, well, they have a patent anyway for a collision avoidance system for powered two-wheelers, which will actually take over the bike's steering. We'll have a very quick look at UK edition Transalp. Benelli, they have a neat little BKX 125 adventure bike, which we'll look at in some detail. And then finally, the in-depth item at the end is the story that Verge and Donut Labs, their spin-off, which is the technology arm, they have created a solid-state powered motorcycle. The actual situation is rather more complicated than that. So we'll have a look at that as we go through the course of the show. So, right, okay, so on with the first element of today's show. Now, where am I? Yeah, I've just wanted to apologise briefly for failing to warn viewers I wouldn't be online on Sunday. I'd completely forgotten that I was actually down in Eastbourne delivering Science of Being Seen on a biker down session run by Doc Bike West Sussex. So thanks to Doc Bike for the opportunity to deliver that. Hope everybody who attended was interested in the content of all the presenters. It's a great initiative biker down. I'm very pleased that I am back delivering my own Science of Being Seen part for them. Anyway, back on Sunday for the next show. Now, before I go anywhere else, I am going to give you a quick heads up on an appeal. My picture's disappeared now. Good Lord. Right, okay, so yeah, Chris Hurren, Professor Chris Hurren, who you probably have heard me talk about before. Let me try and get the right picture up. Everything was set up, and the damn platform just makes it so difficult to use when it keeps changing things behind the scenes. So this is Chris. He's an associate professor at Deakin University. He's the chief scientist behind the MotoCap project, and this appeal comes from Paul Varnsbury, our very own UK-based expert on protective clothing and body armor. Now, what you see here is Chris with his test rig. As you can see, it's not in a laboratory; it's actually bolted to the back of a car. And the idea is that the test samples that he's already tested on his bench machinery, he takes further samples from the same garments and he tests them on the road, on real road surfaces. And the idea is he wants to calibrate his test machine and actually prove that it is very close to existing road surfaces. Anyway, he's now asking riders who live in France, Germany, Italy, Spain, and Sweden, as well as other European countries, to take high-resolution digital images of road surfaces. Now, in short, the photograph needs to be at an angle of 45 degrees to the surface. It needs to be taken from a distance of 50 centimeters. And crucially, what Chris needs is the location via GPS coordinates, what 3 words sort of thing. And then he can catalog all these. Now, Paul has created a cloud depository for these, and I'm just about to put the link up for you. So if you can help out Chris and Paul and get that cataloguing of road surfaces done, they both thank you in advance for their help. Right, okay, so what next? Well, actually, this is quite an interesting one too, because I got an email during the week from M&P talking of a rebirth. Now, I hadn't heard any updates on the online retailer since they appeared to shut down back in September. So I was cautious initially it wasn't some kind of phishing link, but it really does lead to www.mandp.co.uk. And whilst I didn't try buying anything there, the store does appear to be fully open. Right, okay, so let's bring you up to date with the next part of the show, which is the weather. If I can get the graphic to appear on screen. Here we go. Right, so what's the weather going to do for the next few days? Well, it's always worth remembering that weather is a dynamic system, and when I reported the forecast for the week ahead 10 or so days ago on the Sunday, there was no hint of Storm Goretti. Now, it wasn't actually until Wednesday that there were warning signs that a developing low pressure system would actually deepen very dramatically. Now, Goretti was named by Meteo France on Thursday morning as the rapidly deepening storm. It was what's termed a bomb cyclone, brought with it a jet, which is a zone, a very narrow zone with a very, very strong winds. Now, this swept across the south of England on Thursday evening into Friday. It battered the Isles of Scilly and Cornwall with hurricane force winds. Now, a gust of 99 miles per hour, highest ever, was apparently recorded in the Scilly Islands. And I've also heard unconfirmed reports of a gust of over 120 miles an hour at an island just off the coast of Cornwall, where they lost 80% of their trees. Now, it also pulled warm, moist air up from the Azores, and as that collided with the cold air over most of the UK, that dumped the significant snowfall that many of us saw. Now, back to today, a ridge of high pressure has brought clear overnight skies, so watch out for icy roads, dense fog patches to start. Much of the UK will have a sunny, cold day. There will be some cloudy weather with light rain skirting the south coast later, and another weather system will bring some rain into northwest Scotland late on. Now, tomorrow is another complicated day. Much of Wales, England and Scotland will have bright weather, but there will be a spell of heavy rain and strong winds building across southern parts of England tomorrow, and it will spread to cover the entire south, much of Wales and also East Anglia by dusk. Now, expect variable cloud with isolated showers if you're up in the far northwest of Scotland. Now, outlook for Friday and Saturday looks unsettled, dynamic weather, temperatures around normal for January. And so let's move on to some news. Well, on Wednesday, I was greeted by headlines such as, quote, new government road safety strategy, what it means for you. Compulsory eye tests for 70-year-old drivers. Lower drink drive limits will save lives. And, of course, of interest to us, UK government pledges new road safety shake-up, including reform to motorcycle licensing and training. Now, many of these were actually written as though it was all done and dusted. More accurate was the MCIA statement that they welcomed the government commitment to review motorcycle licensing, because that's precisely what is happening and how policy is normally developed. So don't be fooled by these headlines implying changes are happening now. They aren't. So what is actually happening? Well, there's the goals that have been set. There are ambitious plans to reduce deaths and serious injuries on the road down by 65%, which is really quite a drop. And it lays out the areas where consultation is needed. Let's just zoom in on that, give you a slightly better view. Now, directly affecting motorcyclists are several proposals. Now, the first is a requirement to take theory tests before CBT, which is actually something that trainers have been calling for years. Then there is a train on a twist and go, stay on a twist and go update to CBT. Now, this was also mooted decades ago. There's actually a box on the paper CBT certificate that's been there for a couple of decades, I think. There will also be a cap on the number of times a rider can take CBT under discussion, which would effectively reintroduce the mandatory breaks between CBT retakes that was actually in place up until about 1990, I think. The idea is to stop professional learners riding continuously on old plates. And then there is up for to discuss a training-based approach to license progression. So in other words, you can step through the various tiers of motorcycle license by taking training and an assessment rather than having to do a DVSA test. Now, this was actually something allowed for in the original EU license directive over a decade ago, but it was rejected at the time by the DFT and the DVSA. Now, rather than repeat the whole story, I suggest that you look at Sunday's post. The link is in the description to the show. But what was quite shocking was the number of responses in the comments on my Facebook post to the effect that this is, quote, nothing to do with road safety. Many repeated the old myth that it's bad drivers that kill bikers. They don't, sadly. Most dead bikers have been involved in cornering crashes, in which case they're usually one-offs, or in overtaking crashes, in which case it's usually the rider who made the mistake. Scarily, there were lots of comments to the effect that if you've done CBT once, why shouldn't you be allowed to keep riding? Well, it rather depends, of course, on whether you consider CBT fit for purpose. I don't, and I didn't when I was a CBT instructor either. You know, it's the motorcycle test that determines whether you are actually competent to ride on the roads. Now, personally, I can't believe that motorcyclists remain the only group able to use the road unaccompanied without having passed the tests and riding on hill plates. Not one person that I could see actually commented on the fact that the requirement, if the requirement for individual tests at each of the tiered license steps was removed, it could well make things cheaper for motorcyclists. There are plenty of claims that the measures are, quote, to make money for the government, but that of course completely ignores the fact that the costs of poor road safety impact public health budgets, and of course that cost itself is picked up by the government. I honestly think that some of the riders who balk at spending a few £100s on getting a license would be appalled if they were actually handed the full bill for their treatment post-crash. Anyway, on with some more news. Now, the next story is about a collision that occurred on the M2 in Kent, and it involved a motorcycle and a Tesla. Now, the crash happened at around 6:30 on Wednesday morning last week between junctions 4 and 5, near the Gillingham turn-off, you can see. Involved that Tesla car, which is down in the distance, and the motorcycle. Now, sadly, despite the response of the emergency services, the rider was pronounced dead at the scene. Now, Kent Police are continuing inquiries, and at the time of writing, there are no further details released. Now, given previous investigations into the United States into fatal crashes between Teslas and motorcycles. Some of those are known to have occurred while driver assistance systems were active. So I think it's pretty inevitable that riders will be asking exactly that question, whether the driver was using such a system here at the moment in the UK. Now, right now, you can't legally use them, and there is no suggestion that the Tesla involved in this crash was operating in self-driving mode, but fully autonomous or hands-off driving is not legal in the UK. Adaptive cruise control, lane assist are driver assist features only, and responsibility always remains with the person behind the wheel. Right, let's jump forward 2 pictures. There we go. A reward of up to £1,000 has been offered following the theft of 2 Honda motorcycles, which were the centerpiece of a Grinch-themed festive display. They disappeared on Saturday last week. 2 masked men were caught on camera loading the red off-road bikes and a mini moto as well into a van. The van had no number plates, and it was outside the MG Accident Repair Centre near Wolverhampton. And the owner, Grace Hughes, said, "We do the display for the community. Really, it's just something nice to see as you drive past. But now, I don't know if we'll continue. Is it worth the risk?" Staffordshire Police, in this case, have asked for information. And an illegal e-bike rider was stopped. Let me zoom in on that picture there. By Durham Police. They used a stinger, and you can see the sort of remains of the stinger. I think that's it there in the tyre. This was on Tuesday, January the 6th. The rider had been spotted by a marked patrol and attempted to make off on the unregistered bike, and police described the chase as coming to a swift and safe conclusion. Now, the rider was subsequently arrested. He's been charged with a number of offences, including dangerous driving, failing to stop, and document-related offences. The bike, which I think is a Suron, it proved to have just 18 miles on the clock. And it seems the rider bought the bike for himself as a Christmas present. Now, given the cheapest Suron sets you back about £3,000, that works out at £167 per mile. There seems to be no limit to the number of riders doing something a little bit on the daft side. Here's another one. This rider was caught on dashcam on the A14, and as you can see, he's flat on the tank of his L-plated machine, with his legs stuck out in the Superman position. Now, one comment on Facebook laughably suggested it was a standard streamlining position, and that we've all done it at some point in our early biking career. Well, maybe I'm just plain dull, but I didn't. And frankly, with so many vehicles currently equipped with dash cams, I have to concur with the rider who said it was just plain stupid as an activity. Right, okay, quick break while I drink some tea. Let's hope the video works. As always, can I ask you to take a moment to like and subscribe to this show if you've not already done so? Every click helps other motorcyclists discover my content, or simply share the word the old-fashioned way by telling your riding buddies about Elevenses. They can watch on catch-up. Remember, my latest riding skills articles are always free, and you can get links delivered weekly to your email inbox by subscribing to my newsletter at survivalskills.substack.com. Or you can use this QR code to jump straight to it when the show's over, of course. No spam, and if you don't like the content, unsubscribe at any time. Right, the automation has gone completely down the pan, but here we are again with some news in brief for motorcyclists. That has to disappear again, that has to come back again, and that has to go there. Right, okay. So first news story, a blood biker has launched a petition. It's on change.org, and it's campaigning for blood bikes to be able to ride with a green headlight, making them more visible, highlighting their emergency work. You'll recall a second blood biker in a year died in Wales just around Christmas period. Louise Lunt says, much like the way ambulances and police vehicles are easily spotted with blue lights, green lights would significantly enhance our visibility. Now, out in Australia on the Gold Coast, motorcycle training schools say they are facing closure after the local city council turned them off public land where they've been conducting off-road sessions for learners. They say losing access will make it commercially unviable to keep operating. And they branded the council's decision hypocrisy, saying they are undermining road safety objectives at a time when the region has rising motorcycle accident rates. The council says the decision is risk-based and covers concerns about insurance and public safety. Now, rumours suggest that KTM's major MotoGP sponsor, Red Bull, might be about to jump ship to link up once more with Marc Marquez at Ducati at the end of this coming 2026 season. Now, that is, of course, assuming that KTM continue to compete. Now, KTM were first to showcase their new 850cc engine ready for the 2027 season, but it's reported that CF Moto are actually interested in claiming KTM's MotoGP spots. Okay, now another theft story, sadly. Far too many of them, aren't there? This is the Richmond Area Motorcycle Project. They're a long-running community scheme, and they've been stopped in their tracks by the theft of their 4 Honda CRF 125s from their base in Catterick Garrison. This was back in early December. RAMP works closely with North Yorkshire Youth, Youth Justice, Early Help and Change Direction schemes. And they've set up a GoFundMe page to help raise funds to replace the bikes. So if you've a few pennies left over after Christmas and you want a good cause, maybe this one is one you could support. So there's the link to go there. Right, okay, next story. This is a good one. I like this. It's a bit fuzzy, unfortunately. I couldn't find a better picture, but this is Malaysian traveller Anita Yusuf, and she has spent 10 years on what she calls her global dream ride, and she's just finished it. She's ridden around the world over 2 legs, beginning in 2015, and the second began in 2019. The 58-year-old former lecturer who learned to ride when she was 44, she has visited more than 100 countries, and get this, all 7 continents, including Antarctica, although whether she actually rode her bike down there, I'm not entirely sure. I doubt it somehow. Anita admitted that she nearly gave up when documentation issues stranded her in Ethiopia for 3 weeks. Now, what bike did she ride to complete this 65,000 kilometer trip? Well, it was a Yamaha FZ 150i, so no monster tourer. Right, okay, try and get the video working again. If you enjoy these shows, why not become a member of my Ko-fi pages? Just follow the QR code and sign up. As a member, you get free access to the latest articles and the Survival Skills ebook shop with instant downloads of everything from free mini ebooks to ebook versions of my paperbacks. Become a one-off supporter and you'll open up the archive of over 1,000 articles. If you buy me a monthly cuppa as a subscriber, there's even more content to enjoy. Right, okay, so it's time for some bike news, and what have we got for you today? Well, the first story is the final UK Power Two-Wheeler registrations are out for 2025, and the bad news is they're down 19% on 2024. The final total was just under 94,000, which included 3,282 electric bikes, incidentally. It's a drop of over 22,000 machines. So, as I say, nearly get over 20% decline. Now, MCIA's chief executive, Tony Campbell, he's spun these results thus. Quote, the total volumes for the year closed at 93,922, very close to our early year forecast. And he claimed there was little point comparing the 2025 data with the 2024 numbers because thousands of motorcycles have been pre-registered in 2024 to sidestep the upcoming Euro 5 plus emissions regs, which came into force in January, of course, last year. So in other words, he's suggesting that the 2024 data was artificial artificially boosted by registrations in December. But that would be fine, except for one thing. They were, of course, the unsold bikes from December from 2024. Anyway, Campbell believes that with many new 2026 models launched, there is much to be excited about. He points to the fact that people tend to turn towards motorcycles when there's a cost of living squeeze. Yeah, maybe they do, but unfortunately they tend to go to the sort of scooters and 125s, and they tend to stop buying bigger bikes. Now, the MCIA is also urging government to be more open to new low carbon combustible fuels. We've been through that story for ever and ever, where you're going to get it from. But it does follow the European Commission confirming a new strategy for the automotive sector post 2035, which allows for 90% tailpipe emission reduction instead of a full on 100% ban. What the government will do here in the UK to follow they'll follow suit remains to be seen. Now, one way to refresh a bike that's been around the block a bit is a technology upgrade. Traction control is now found on just about every bike from a sort of, quite lightweight upwards actually. Cornering ABS is also steadily making its way down the model range. Another coming technology are collision avoidance systems, and Honda have just patented an interesting one that uses cameras to monitor your bike's blind spots, and if another vehicle starts to get too close, then applies steering inputs to help avoid a collision. Sounds pretty horrific, doesn't it? Let's have a look at the logic for the system. There it is. Now, according to the patent, the system constantly checks rider input against a detected threat. If you're already steering away from the approaching vehicle, it seems that the system can apply slightly stronger steering assistance immediately. If no steering has been detected and you're on a collision course, then the system will gradually steer the bike clear. It's said that the system really is designed to intervene gently and only when needed. So it's kind of akin to the sort of steering assist feature you'll find on a modern car, which theoretically nudges the vehicle away from potential danger. I found the nudge, frankly, mostly more annoying than helpful. And on one or two occasions, it actually nudged me back towards danger rather than away from it. But I'd be more interested to see the impact on stability when the system actuates on a powered two-wheeler and turns the bars without the rider expecting it. I have to be honest, the idea of the bike taking control when I'm not anticipating that to happen doesn't fill me with confidence. Even minor unexpected changes of balance and control are uncomfortable when you're riding a motorcycle. Now, of course, other manufacturers are also headed down this route towards advanced rider aids, but whether this tech ever reaches production is another question altogether. You can, of course, revamp a motorcycle by spinning off a special edition. This is actually what Honda are doing with the Transalp. The SP edition will feature retro-inspired colours and graphics. I have to be honest, I had to look very hard to see the difference, but you can see that it's got wire wheels, an engine guard, wraparound crash bars, and a skid plate. These are now all as standard. However, you are expected to pay an extra £600 over the top of the base model, 10,499 on the road for this model now. For some reason, it actually only comes with the manual gearbox as well, not the newer e-clutch option, which does make me wonder if the manual is suddenly not selling well. Right, rather less expensive is our next machine. This is it. This is Benelli. It's a Chinese brand, of course, these days, but the bikes are designed in Italy. And this is a high-spec 125 adventure bike built specially for A1 riders, those ones stuck on those L plates I was talking about earlier. Now, though there's no word on who actually supplies the units up front, this Benelli BKX 125 gets 41mm upside down forks that are fully adjustable for preload, compression and rebound. And at the back you get a linkage mounted monoshock which is also adjustable for preload and rebound. Now together they offer around 233 millimeters, 9.2 inches I should say, roughly speaking, ground clearance. Now hopefully it will be decent quality suspension, because it's honestly not often that you get this level of adjustability outside of some fairly premium priced bigger bikes. Now it's a steel tubular trellis frame. It wraps around the engine, which is a brand new liquid cooled Euro 5 Plus, of course. It's a single cylinder, puts out 11 kilowatts, bang on the 14.6 horsepower limit for learners at 9,500 RPM, 21 Newton meters or 8.9 pounds-feet of torque at 7,000 RPM. And this engine is a world away from the anemic air-cooled 125s we were seeing coming out of China just a couple of years ago, really. Wheels are spoked, 19-inch up front with a 28mm front disc gripped by a 4-piston radial caliper, which I have to say seems complete overkill for the bike. But anyway, the rear gets a 17-inch wheel wrapped with a single piston disc. Now fuel capacity is 12 litres, around 12 start again, around 2.6 UK gallons, and that should make the bike capable of running at least 250 miles, I would think, before it needs refilling. Lighting, full LED, bike gets handguards. The S model also adds a USB socket and an LCD instrument panel. Seat height's pretty tall, 860 millimeters, and the bike's a little heavy, 144 kilograms, or something over 300 pounds, ready to roll. But pricing is relatively light at £3,499. And as we saw in that earlier story about Anita Yusof riding around the world on a Yamaha R150, is proof big adventures don't need a big bike. Just one problem. Here in the UK, the Benelli website appears to be offline. Right, okay, so time to move to the final part of the show, which is our in-depth element. Now, last week also dumped a lot of headlines, such as "You can finally buy an EV with a solid-state battery. It's a motorcycle." Verge Motorcycles unveils world's first electric bike with a solid-state battery, and world's first solid-state battery-powered electric motorcycle achieves groundbreaking 370 miles of range. And the claims were that the bike is available now. So what is actually behind these headlines? Well, Donut Lab is a technology offshoot of the Finnish bike builder Verge, and Verge used it to spin off to market their hubless rear-wheel drive as a sort of standalone technology. That's the one used on the Verge electric bikes. And the company has been making some claims for the battery. It was revealed at the 2026 CES show in Las Vegas just a few days ago. And they say it can be custom designed to fit any shape and even used as a structural component. And it could be used on anything from a drone to a car. So big claims, really. It's claimed to deliver 400 watts of energy density. And it's said that it can gain 186 miles of range in just 10 minutes if plugged into a 200 kilowatt charger. And this is, as the graph there shows you, the sort of the state of charge going from empty to up towards 90% charged, and in 0 to sort of 350 odd seconds. If you work that out, that's just under 10 minutes, isn't it, if I remember correctly? Hang on. No, just not 10 minutes, 6 minutes. So what else for the battery? Well, it's said to offer no fire risk, and it's also claimed it lasts the lifetime of the bike with no sort of memory effect, no reduction in capacity. Donut CEO said the batteries are, quote, ready for use in OEM production vehicles now, today, not later, and, quote, they can be seen now in real world use in the Verge Motorcycles bikes out on the road in Q1. where they also said it wouldn't add to the bike's existing price. Now, that is about £35,000 for TS Pro, so it's not a cheap motorcycle. Now, on the face of this press release, it is, of course, tempting to think that the electric motorcycle's two biggest problems have just been solved overnight. But looking at the claims rather more objectively actually throws up more questions than it actually provides answers. Now, first things first, solid-state batteries are not a new idea. And there are research groups in universities all over the world, and virtually every major automotive manufacturer seems to be working on them, since they genuinely are promising. But nobody else seems even close to a customer-ready launch. Toyota, who seems to be leading the pack, they suggest that an EV launch with a solid-state battery could take place sometime around 2027, 2028. Nissan, Honda, BMW, Volkswagen, and others all have active programs and pilot production lines, but none have announced any plans for deployment in customer cars yet. And the only vehicle that I can locate that has shown off a solid state battery in a vehicle itself was the Ducati Moto E prototype for next year's now cancelled series. What about the fast charging claim? Well, that also deserves looking at cautiously, because sustained 200 kilowatt charging requires both a very robust thermal management system for the battery itself to stop it overheating, but also a grid infrastructure that barely exists in the UK. There are under 10,000 charging points at the moment which get close to that. Now, what about the doubled range? Well, last year, Verge and Donut ran a media campaign claiming a certified 193-mile test range for the Verge with the ordinary lithium-ion battery. But it was conducted in central London. It took an entire day to ride the bike over the 193-mile route, and it took them, well, it managed just 12 miles per hour. Now, whether a solid state battery could double that anyway is debatable. Lab prototypes have actually delivered somewhere around about 350 to 450 kilowatts per kilogram, which does improve on the best lithium-ion batteries, which are somewhere around 250 to 300 watt hours per kilogram. But unless the current batteries at Verge are at the low end of the lithium-ion efficiency scale, it's hard to see how a solid state battery could actually double the range unless they use the lighter weight to physically pack more cells in, but of course that requires space. The 100,000 charge cycle claim particularly stretches credulity. They say that it equates to 274 years of daily use. Well, no one started testing solid state batteries back in 1752, so presumably it's extrapolated from research bench prototype cells, small ones in other words, tested in a lab. And my guess is that the finished solid state batteries from Donut will be restricted to very small scale production anyway. Now, Donut Labs is light on construction details. They say only that the battery is made from abundant, affordable and geopolitically safe materials, which all sounds very reassuring but doesn't tell us anything. Finally, Verge, they have delivered a few finished motorcycles in Europe, but neither the company themselves nor independent sources have published an official verifiable account of how many bikes that is. So it's unlikely more than a handful have reached customers, and you can't buy an over-the-counter Verge. Now, I'm told there are test bikes available. There's nothing you can see in a showroom. Now, Verge themselves, I'm also told that they are well funded, but they remain a privately held company founded by a group of Finnish and Estonian entrepreneurs, and they are backed by venture capital investors. Now, as we've seen elsewhere, of course, buying a bike like this on pre-order, which means it's not actually been built yet, essentially means you're investing your cash in the success of that company, and events with other manufacturers have shown it's a risky business. Now, none of this actually means that the technology isn't real or that it won't improve electric motorcycles. Better safety for the batteries, improved cold weather performance, faster charging, longer range, they would all be genuine steps forward. But if you are expecting immortal batteries fitted to bikes with an ICE-like range, I'd suggest keeping my expectations in check. Maybe I will be, as one person suggested, I will be eating my words in 12 months' time, but I seriously doubt it. Right, okay, so that's it for today's show. Time to wrap up. But just before I go, quick look at my latest book, which is now available in ebook format. Crash Scene Corner is the second in a new series of books that takes an in-depth look at how we come to grief on two wheels. Now, it looks at the most common open road crash of all, as you probably guessed, in Ben's. And it's a serious attempt to deconstruct the cascade of minor errors that leads to most corner crashes. And in its way, it's the first of its kind. Nothing else does this. It explains the errors first, looks at what the rider can do to avoid making them in the first place, but it also, and this is crucial, looks at how we can spot those mistakes as we're making them, and that what strategies we can use to correct those mistakes before we run out of road. Now, no book can guarantee that we won't crash, but the aim of this short series of crash scene books is to show that a sound understanding of where things go wrong, how they go wrong, why they go wrong, and what simple changes to our riding can significantly reduce the risks, and how that will take us a big step closer to the goal of crash-free motorcycling. So CS Junction is the first in the series. CS Corner is the second, that will be followed soon by the third, CS Overtake. All three books are going to be short. They are inexpensive and they are easy to read. Now, you can download them immediately in ebook format at my coffee store. Here they are. Here's the link to those. Crash Scene Overtake, as I said, that is coming out soon. And watch out for paperback versions too in the not too distant future, as soon as I get those sorted out. Right, that's it for today. Thanks for everybody who has looked in either live or on catch up. You've been watching Elevenses from Kevin Williams of Survival Skills Rider Training. Make a date to join me for the next show for another roundup of news, views, and biking tips. It will be on Sunday. And if you're out there enjoying a ride on your bike today, make sure you stay shiny side up. And I will see you next time.